All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. This is not our normal video. I want to talk about Bitcoin today, and I want to talk about a bunch of different ways to get some exposure to Bitcoin without necessarily directly having to buy Bitcoin on an exchange. There's several reasons I'm doing this video, and I'm going to get into them, but the main one is the vast majority of investors do not directly own Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is on a gigantic run. So for those of you not invested in Bitcoin, for those of you who are invested in Bitcoin, I still think this video is worth watching. This video has a lot of information that we don't usually talk about, so please do us a favor and smash the like button. We're going for 400 likes on this video. I want to help spread this video out to people. This will help spread the word on Bitcoin. For those of you involved in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners, please do me a favor and smash the like button and consider forwarding this to a friend. These are several different ways to get direct exposure to either Bitcoin or Bitcoin futures without actually having to buy Bitcoin, and none of this is complicated. Everything that I'm going to show you in this video, a beginner can do to almost all investors. Most of the major players out there are all looking to get a spot ETF going. The market is clearly rallying in anticipation that this is going to happen very soon. We don't know exactly when the ETF is coming, and that's the whole point of this video. So I want to get to some other ways that you can get Bitcoin in your portfolio just right through your regular brokerage account. And with each one, I'm going to tell you whether it's a straight play or a leveraged play and how the exposure is occurring. So let's start with a simple one. Stock ticker GBTC. This is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. So the Bitcoin Grayscale Trust holds Bitcoin already, but it does trade at a discount. This discount was as much as almost 50% within the last year, but the discount keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and that is anticipation of the fact that people believe that very soon this is going to get converted to a spot ETF, and when that happens, the discount will go away altogether. The market price of GBTC was $7.91, but the holdings that it had, in other words, the Bitcoin that it had to support that, was worth $15.42. So if we fast forward all the way to today, you're going to see right now the market price is $24.70 and the holdings are worth $28.20. That 40-something% discount is now down to about a 12% discount. And again, that is getting more and more narrow based on the fact that people think this is going to get converted to a Bitcoin spot ETF. And when that happens, this discount is going to disappear altogether. So this is probably the most direct play on Bitcoin out of everything that we're going to look at. This is literally a trust that holds the Bitcoin already. This really is not very much of a leveraged play. Okay, so that's number one. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, this is stock ticker BITO. This is the ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF. So you're going to say, wait a second, I thought there was no Bitcoin ETF. This is not a spot ETF. This is a futures ETF. So this fund holds no Bitcoin. So although it should trade in tandem with Bitcoin, this fund holds Bitcoin futures that should represent on a day-to-day basis, should roughly represent the price action on Bitcoin. So 100% of the underlying assets of this are Bitcoin futures. Now, there is a risk involved in Bitcoin futures, and they don't always line up one-to-one with the price action on Bitcoin. So this is exposure to Bitcoin for sure, but the underlying asset is not Bitcoin itself, it's Bitcoin futures, so there is a fundamental difference. This can be purchased by basically any brokerage that you're in. So all this is the press of a button. If you have an app on your phone, just like any other stock, you can just go type in BITO and purchase shares of this, and essentially you're getting exposure to Bitcoin futures, so not quite Bitcoin, but very similar. You can see this has about $883 million in market cap. Today was a very high trading volume day. This traded 36 million shares today. They average about 8 or 9 million. So this is a very liquid fund. There's a decent amount of assets in here, and this has been going on for a little while. Now there's another fund, BITX. So again, this is just stock ticker BITX. You type this in, you buy it like it's any other stock or ETF. This is a 2x leverage on Bitcoin. So you'll see this is the 2x Bitcoin Strategy ETF. Once again, this fund owns no Bitcoin. This is all done with Bitcoin futures. So theoretically, this should trade 2x what Bitcoin does. This was up 15.28%. So that very much did represent 2x leverage. On any given day, this is roughly the way these should react, but on a day-to-day basis, anything can happen. These ETFs are not perfect. Now, theoretically, when the Bitcoin ETF comes out, it basically should trade identically to Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis. Okay, the third one is a company called MicroStrategy. This is stock ticker MSTR. There is an underlying business here that has nothing to do with Bitcoin, but I still consider this a virtual pure play on Bitcoin, and you're going to see why. The vast majority of this company's assets are Bitcoin. This is a $5 billion company. They hold nearly $5 billion in Bitcoin, but it is not an ETF. This is a business. They have a running business that has nothing to do with Bitcoin. On top of that, their chairman, Michael Saylor, who many of you may have heard of, he's a very high-profile individual. He's probably the most high-profile spokesperson for Bitcoin that's out there. Well, he's the chairman of this company, and they started compiling Bitcoin several years ago. So they now, as of July 31st, 2023, had 152,800 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They've bought a bunch since then. They're at about 158,000 right now. That is the most Bitcoin that any publicly traded company owns. And like I said, with this many Bitcoin on their balance sheet, this represents the vast majority of the market cap of this company. And because they've been able to do this by raising capital and doing some borrowings on convertible debt, this is a leveraged play. So you're going to see, if we look at this play, they were up 12%. This is a leveraged play, but once again, because it's not an exact Bitcoin ETF, this can fluctuate based on what the market is doing. Ultimately, this is an equity. This is a company that stands behind this. So their stock can fluctuate, but you can see it definitely moves in correlation with Bitcoin. And obviously, this being the company that has the most self-owned Bitcoin out of any publicly traded company in the world, this is the purest play on Bitcoin as far as owning a company's stock. There are other companies that own more Bitcoin than this, but they hold them in custody for their customers, such as Coinbase and Robinhood, but those companies, it's not their Bitcoin. They're just merely holding those in custody for people that have bought Bitcoin on their exchanges. This is an easy way to get direct and leveraged exposure to Bitcoin into your portfolio. So as always, I want to mention, anytime you're dealing with things that have potential leverage, there's always a lot of risk involved in this, so please understand these companies before you buy into them. As always, do your own due diligence. You need to make your own decisions. I'm not recommending any of these companies. I'm just letting everybody know some different ways to gain exposure to Bitcoin without actually having to go out and buy a Bitcoin, or without having to actually sit and wait for a Bitcoin spot ETF to be approved. Okay, now I want to talk about the most highly leveraged way to get exposure to Bitcoin, and that is through owning Bitcoin mining companies. So these are pure plays on Bitcoin. All of these companies, the main thing they do, and in most cases the only thing they do, is mine Bitcoin. For those of you who don't know what that means, I have done many videos, so please check out my channel. You can watch any of several hundred videos that will go through and explain exactly what it is Bitcoin miners do. And if you like a specific Bitcoin miner, chances are I've done several videos on that specific miner. So Bitcoin miners represent a leverage play on Bitcoin. This is the most leveraged play out of everything we've talked about, but leverage goes both ways. As Bitcoin went down, these plays were a leverage to the downside. In theory, as Bitcoin goes up, these should be a leverage play to the upside. I will tell you, with the halving coming up, that makes this even more complicated. So there's a lot of variables involved. This is by far the most complicated of all the things we're looking at, just from the standpoint of understanding. It's super simple to buy these. These are actual stocks. They all have very different business strategies, and they all have different risks involved with them. So it's super important to understand these if you're going to buy any individual one of these stocks. Now, if you don't want to take the time to dig into these 10 or 20 different stocks and figure out which is which and which one is best, there is another option. There's a Bitcoin mining ETF. So this is stock ticker WGMI. This is the Valkyrie Bitcoin Mining ETF. So this is comprised of Bitcoin miners. I will caution you, we're going to take a look at their holdings. About 85% of their holdings are Bitcoin mining companies. About 15% of their holdings are companies that are related to Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. This is a very, very small asset total. The market cap here is about $13 million. 394,000 shares were traded yesterday. That was a high volume day because Bitcoin has been so high profile and has been on such a run. You see, the average volume is more like 118,000 shares a day. So the one thing I would mention about this and point out is this is a little bit lower volume than probably what you're used to trading, but this is enough to be liquid. If you're not sure which company you like, a way to get exposure to the Bitcoin miners in general would just be to buy the Valkyrie fund. These are a lot of different ways to try to accomplish the same thing. Obviously, of course, the more comfortable you get with this, at some point you may want to own Bitcoin directly. A lot of people like to have a hybrid strategy. It's a way you can diversify your portfolio. You know, some of these things have higher risk than others, so you can spread the risk around. Obviously, you guys got to decide what you want to do. It's your portfolios, but hopefully I've given you a bunch of different options, a bunch of different things to at least add to your watch list, and a bunch of different ways to consider adding some Bitcoin exposure to your portfolio without actually having to go out and buy Bitcoin. So that's what I got for you. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please leave your thoughts and comments down below. Do you hold any of these? Are you interested in any of these? Also, please remember to smash the like button. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.